I'll just make 4 quick points through these 4 slides. Next. So the first point is, the peculiar dilemma of Dravidian movement. As we all know that Dravidian movement was born out of false Aryan Dravidian racist theories. It started out as an anti-Brahmin movement, but very quickly turned into anti-Indian national and anti-Hindu movement. It tried to stand on 2 irreconcilable ideological legs. So one was rationalism, atheism, scientific temper, egalitarianism, social justice, and all this, on one hand. And on the other hand, it advocated Dravidian racial supremacy, a Tamil supremacy, and indigenous Dravidian superior race and culture as opposed to the northern Aryan alien culture. So obviously, it's like trying to drive a bullock cart with 2 bulls that are just going in 2 different directions. So they stumbled upon a very practical problem that when they looked at the Tamil culture, it was filled with the Indic civilizational aspects, and it was an epitome of Hindu dharma. It was filled with Hindu ethos, and the Tamil landscape was filled with these grand Hindu temples. In fact, it was even more pristinely Hindu than the northern Aryan landscape, which was battered by the Muslim invasion and the Mughal rule. So it was obviously a very complex problem for them. So to overcome this, what did they do? First, they took out the physical symbols of this culture, the temples, right? So they demonized the temples. They called them as superstition and centers of Brahmin domination. They demonized it so much that the people of Tamil Nadu started hating their own treasures of architectural and artistic heritage. And today we see the pathetic state in which the Tamil Nadu temples are. The precursor for the current degeneration of Tamil Nadu temple and the loot by the government department called the Hindu Endowment Board, the root for all this lies in the demonization of the temples by the Dravidian movement. Very unfortunate. The second thing they did, which is a little more subtle, is that the Tamil literature, it's full of Hindu idioms and Hindu ethos. So they created very perverted distortions and misrepresentation of this literature, which is what is the theme of my talk. So you can say that the Dravidian movement was essentially a populist movement. It didn't have any intellectual caliber. It didn't have great savants or erudite scholars. But in spite of that, it succeeded in Tamil Nadu. And in fact, it captured power and remained in it for such a long time that it created intellectual slaves and academic stooges who would just toe its line. Though in itself it was a very populist movement. And a lot of damage has already been done as a result of this in Tamil Nadu. So just a quick outline about the glorious Tamil literary heritage. It spans over 2,300 years. It's truly classical. In fact, it's in the league of Prakrit, Sanskrit, and Pali, one of the oldest languages of Indian subcontinent rather. It's very vast, rich, profound, and varied, and colossal. I have just put bullets. It starts with the Sangam classics, the Ettu Togai and Pattu Pattu, the 8 anthologies and 10 books. So they are dated around 300 BCE to 200 CE. 5 centuries of colossal literary output. And the post-Sangam 18 works called Padinan Kizhkanakku, of which Tirukkural is a major work, and then works on grammar, poetics, aesthetics, starting from the ancient Tolkappiyam all the way to the medieval book of Nannul. Great kavyas. The only Sanskrit is a rival for this to Tamil. The Silappadigaram among the 5 great kavyas, Kamba Ramayanam, Periya Puranam, and Villi Bharatam, some great. And then there is this Bhakti literature which is called Tamil Veda by the Tamil people till today. There are these 12 Shaiva Tirumurai books. Together there are about 15,000 verses. And the Vaishnava Nalayara Divya Prabandham, about 4,000 verses. This is the earliest in non-Sanskrit Bhakti poetry in India. And there are many other allied works to this. So much that in the northern Bhakti idiom, there is a proverb, Bhakti Dravida Upaji, Laye Ramanand. They say that Bhakti was born in the land of Dravida and Ramananda brought it here. And then a large works in medieval literature, varied Bhakti and philosophical themes, court poetry, commentaries, assorted topics, many literary forms and all that. And then the modern literary renaissance, starting with the great Subramanya Bharati, our national poet. The Tamil literary heritage is very unique in its splendor and expressions, but it has so much commonalities with pan-Indian Hindu literature. In fact, I saw that there are many papers on this very topic tomorrow that are going to be presented. But unfortunately, it's relatively much less known outside Tamil Nadu compared to Sanskrit literary works. This is something that we need to address. Both the Tamil people as well as the national government and other authorities. Now I'll jump into the main theme here, the systematic de-Hinduization attempts. So you could wonder how this was even possible to de-Hinduize such a thing. But they worked so hard on it for so long. And I have just put, each of these bullets can be expanded into a separate talk. So take the Sangam classics, Thirukural and Silappadigaram. How did they deny the Hinduness of this? So first, it's a vast literature, right? 500 years. So just suppress all the manifold references to Vedas, Yajna, divinities like Indra, Shiva, Vishnu, etc. Concepts like Dharma, epic and Puranic legends. So if you just scan the Tamil textbooks, you will see that the selections from the Tamil Sangam poetry are carefully chosen such that they will not have any references. It will only have reference to some love or bravery of a king, so that in the popular mind, this association is just suppressed. And of course, you cannot suppress it from scholars who study literature, right? So how did they work around that problem? So just misinterpret through many techniques like idiotic word splitting, funny pseudo-etymology, and baseless invention of meanings. Just to give some examples, Tamil being a very antique language has original words for many concepts which none of the Indian languages may have. For example, Veda is called Marai in Tamil, which means it is Gudha or hidden. And Yajna is called Velvi, which comes from the root verb to invoke and to ask for. And Vishnu has a very original name in Tamil called Mal, which means the enchanter. And Shri, as many of you know, has a original word called Thiru in Tamil. So Vishnu is also called Thirumal. And Durga has a very original name called Kutravai, means the one who rules or the one who is victorious. Now, these are very, very original Tamil words for Hindu divinities and Hindu concepts. So these Dravidian distortionists, this became a very convenient tool for them to just deny the Hinduness. They say that Marai means some secret old wisdom. It's not really the Veda. But unfortunately, they are immediately caught when there are so many references like non-Marai, which means 4 Vedas. And then it says Arangam, non-Marai Arangam, means 4 Vedas with 6 Angas, and then Iruk Mudal non-Marai, meaning Vedas starting with Rig, Yajur. And in a similar manner, you take any of these words, a word cannot be just looked upon in isolation, right? It has to be always read in the context. So that is the basic rule in any textual criticism or literary theory. But they just threw all this into the wind And there is a big cottage industry that got formed during the Dravidian rule of, academicians and Tamil scholars and other etymologists cropping up by the day, giving strange explanations this way. And then you point out to them, hey, you are not the first guy to read Thirukural or Sangam classics or Silappatikaram. It has been there for 2000 years. So there are commentaries, right? So there are commentaries written 1000 years back. You should see how they have read the old Sangam classics, and none of them give you the meanings like the way you say, right? So they just say it is Veda, Vishnu, Shiva. And then they started saying that the commentators are all scheming Brahmins. They had an agenda, right? So just interpret your own literary heritage in racist terms. So this has gone on for quite some time. And then the other standard technique is the positing the Jaina and Buddhist literary works against the Vedic Hindu culture, saying that the Buddhist Jain works are somewhat genuinely Tamil instead of the Vedic religion, which itself is so funny because they are much more Aryan, because both the Jaina and Buddhist religions were formed by the Aryan princes of the Shakya clan, and but there were buyers for all this in an atmosphere where the Dravidian racism ruled the roost. And the Kambaramayanam was still more interesting case. So originally they said that Kambaramayanam fit to be burnt. In fact, there are even posters of Dravidian parties where there are books like Ramayana and Kambaramayanam is burning. And then they thought it's too much of a great literary masterpiece. In fact, Kamban, the author of Kambaramayanam, is called Kavi Chakravarti in Tamil. He is the greatest Tamil poet. So how can you simply call him a stooge and throw away his work? That is like, and then the next level of de-Hinduization started, where they just ripped the epic apart from its complete essence. The idea of Rama's avatarhood, the dharma, and the ethical concepts, everything. And they started creating a discourse where you only appreciate the beauty of the language and the poetry and throw away the concept completely. It is like take a living man, skin him alive, and just celebrate his skeleton. But tomes of Tamil books have been written on Kambaramayanam like this. And then the third thing is creating a Kamban Valmiki rift, saying that, okay, but still the question remains as to why Kamban chose to write Ramayana instead of any other story, right? So then they say that Valmiki was a very crude and vulgar poet. His epic is filled with many, very crude cultural aspects. And Kamban refined all of that because he wrote a completely new epic suiting Tamil culture. But I am a Kambaramayanam scholar myself. I actually give discourses on Ramayana. And I have read this epic many times, and I have never found any basis for such a theory. In fact, Kamban speaks so highly of Valmiki at the very start of his epic. The way the refinements, the so-called refinements that you see, is something that every poet does when he re-narrates a great epic, right? Tulasidasa has done it. Every Ramayana re-narrator in every Indian languages has done something like that. And it is not specific to Kamban alone. But they just took this point and created a rift out of it. And now, hold your breath. They started de-Hinduizing Bhakti literature itself. This is strange. So you have, I spoke about this colossal Shaiva and Vaishnava Bhakti literature. They started saying, initially again there was a total opposition, saying that, all this Bhakti literature is Aryan conspiracy. But then again, it is so prevalent. In fact, this Tevaram hymns and the Divya Prabandham hymns are sung in every villages in Tamil Nadu. And this month, the Margazhi month, if you just start any Tamil TV channel, there are these Tirupavai and Tiruvembavai hymns. It is so much mingled with the social and cultural life. So then they started giving strange theories as to the Shaivism and Vaishnavism of Tamil Nadu is something very different from the rest of the country. with the pan-Indian connection. These were all like pseudo and fake academic theories, which were rebutted and they were condemned even when they were coming up, but unfortunately they have spread. In fact, today you just talk to a common Tamil guy, he will say that, the Tamil Shaivism is very different. It is different from the Shaivism in Kashi. Some strangely he will say. And then stupid sociological deconstructions, right? So the entire Bhakti literature was tormented through such theories. And then this misuse of Bhakti hymns to create a Tamil versus Sanskrit competition in worship, which never existed even when this literature was written. In fact, there are references in the Tamil hymns where, for example, the Saint Manika Vasagar. So he describes a morning scene in a Shiva temple. He says, Innisai Veenayar Yaழினர் ஒருபால் இருக்கொடு தோத்திரம் இயம்பினர் ஒருபால் துன்னிய பிணைமலர் கையினர் ஒருபால் தொழுகையர் அழுகையர் துவல்கையர் ஒருபால். He says, I enter the temple and on one side there are people playing the veena and on the other side there are Brahmins chanting the Rig Veda. I just go inside. There are another group of people singing the songs in Tamil. And then when I enter further, I see people with tearful eyes holding garland in their hands. So this was the worship tradition in the Tamil Nadu, which the poet vividly describes. But unfortunately, just because there is so much bhakti poetry in Tamil, they started a movement saying that let us get Sanskrit out of all Tamil Nadu temples. There are still a lot of votaries and takers for such campaigns in Tamil Nadu, unfortunately. So, as you can very easily guess, this creates a very fertile preparation ground, one for direct conversion, the evangelism and the Christian propaganda, because obviously you say that all the Tamil literary heritage that you have is actually not Hindu. It is some strange thing, it is secular. So you can as well convert to Christianity and claim ownership for all your literary heritage. And second thing is directly appropriated. Start saying that actually Tirukural was written by Thiruvalluvar, who became a disciple of St. Thomas, who visited India. So crackpot theories. So this created ground for so much crackpot theories to be born. So, unfortunately, such narrative becoming a de facto cultural discourse in the state, which influences modern literature also. So, you will be surprised that so many novels and short stories and plays have been written on such themes. Okay, the other just thing what I want to mention is the Marxist and secularist ideologues also borrowed all these themes from Dravidians. Because, it catches on once it is set in motion. So it's weakening in the political and social sphere, but it's quite active in the literary and cultural sphere. So rampant distortions continue to be spread.